This is something that we've talked about a few times on the lives, especially because we have website owners, we have people who run their own online businesses who are on these lives. There's a new, I won't say era, that's a bit fancy, a new trend happening where we've got something called the zero-click internet. There is less and less of a need to click through to a website to find the information that we are searching for. So as I've talked about before, this is an existential threat to YouTube. It's not YouTube, but to Google. Google also own YouTube, so it's also a problem for YouTube. It's a problem for Google because if people don't go to Google to find information anymore, then 80% of Google's revenue is at risk. However, Google are also perpetrating and perpetuating this by allowing AI overviews at the top of their Google chats. So whenever you go onto a Google search, you can now get an AI overview, which generally gives you the information that you're looking for without you having to click through to the website, hence zero click. So zero click internet means the people who have built these websites over the last few years or whatever it is are no longer generating advertising revenue. They are no longer bringing people back to their pages and making sales. They are no longer being able to funnel people into a larger ecosystem, which is a huge problem if you run an online business and you have relied on SEO, search engine optimization, for the last decades. That is ending because people are now using ChatGPT and other AI in order to get their information. And this is only just going to speed up. So we've got a few studies. There is, oh gosh, terrible website. There's one from the Pew Research Center, which says that there is a drop of, here we go, just looking for it, struggling to find it. See, this is probably indicative. If you were looking for a certain piece of information, an AI overview is generally a better way to get it, not going to the website and having to search through it. So if I wanted a answer to this question, I'd be able to get it from AI in half a second. Whereas now I need to go through all of this data and find it myself. Basically, AI allows us to be a lot lazier. And people will always want to be lazy. So if you run a business, appealing to laziness is going to be a good way to make money. So 6 in 10 respondents conducted at least one Google search in March 2025 that produced AI-generated summary, blah, blah, blah. I can't even find it. I'm going back to this. So this is good. Study claimed sites previously ranked first can lose 80% or 79% of traffic if results appear below Google overview. So if you are below an AI overview, then you are 80% less likely to get that click, which, as you can imagine, demolishes businesses. Anyone that relied on being first on Google is now in a huge amount of trouble. And so what you just saw, me struggling to find the information on the page, is indicative. So every time I do these summaries every single morning, I'm having to go to web pages. I'm having to go to news pages. And one, sometimes the information is hard to find that I'm looking for. 2, they're generally filled with adverts or just crap all over the screen. 3, sometimes they're paywalled and I cannot get access to the information. There are so many barriers that are making it harder and less attractive to get information by using search. Search has been the paradigm that we've used to access information on the internet for the last 20 years or so. So we assume that is the only way to access information. But doing it via generative AI is actually faster. We can get more sources. Yes, there are going to be issues of hallucination, but those are decreasing when we use things like deep research models or something like Perplexity and their new browser, Comet. The sources will be provided. So it will allow us to go back to the original website or the original source and show us exactly where the information needs to be. It is fundamentally a better way of accessing information than using search, because search is gameable. So the whole thing about search engine optimization, which has been in industry for the last 20 years, is how to get to the top of Google. Not should you be at the top of Google, not is that the best thing to be at the top of Google, but how, as a business or as a news agency, do I game the system? How do I game the Google algorithm to move my information to the top of Google? That's been in industry. That is not in the benefit of the end user, the person who wants to find a recipe for lasagna, the person who wants to find out easily information about how many people are clicking on websites, for example. Instead, what happens is search engine optimization specialists can help game that system and get you to the top. That doesn't work anymore. Instead, the generative AIs are trained on all the information, and they will synthesize that information to give us what we need based on our questions. So we are going around Google. Funnily enough, it is Google who are helping us to do this with the AI overviews. This was a question on the live yesterday, because I said AI overviews and AI search and AI generation of information is an existential threat to Google. Google will probably not be around in 10 years from now, which I know is hard to believe, but the reason for this is search makes up 80% of Google's revenue, and it's at a 75% profit margin. This is their cash cow. This is where a huge amount of money comes from. I looked it up yesterday, but I think it was, I've already forgotten. Is it 200 million? Yeah, 200 billion last year in search revenue. So they make money by showing adverts at the top of Google, and that's how they make 80% of their revenue at 75% profit margin. That is their cash cow. Everything else that Google do, telephones, Gmail, even YouTube, is much, much smaller than that pure search revenue. That is what they stand to lose. This is also why there was an interview with Mustafa Suleyman, who used to be the head of AI or the VP of AI at Google. He said that they were sitting on a model called, not Llama. Oh gosh, I've totally forgotten the name of it. They were sitting on a model which was basically ChatGPT before ChatGPT, and Google decided not to release it because they knew that it would cannibalize and destroy their search engine business. So now what they're doing, Google are trying to have their cake and eat it. They are saying they're trying to protect their search engine business, which is the majority of their money, by giving AI overviews at the top of Google. But the problem here is that people are not going to continue to create websites. They're not going to create online businesses, because if they're not being sent that traffic by Google, what is the incentive? So it kicks the legs out from underneath why Google is valuable, because Google indexes, it spiders, it crawls all over the internet and then tells us which websites we should be going to. That is no longer going to be a valuable proposition, and Google will tank. And a question came up, I think it was Jack, it might have been you yesterday, Jack, saying, won't they just replace their search revenue with AI revenue? Yes, 100% that's what they want to do. Just going to be really hard. So we looked at OpenAI's revenues last year were, I think, 10 billion or 5 billion. Compare that to the 200 billion that Google made at 75% profit margin from their search. It's just a long way off. No AI company is generating that kind of cash yet. Despite their valuations, the money just isn't there yet. Whereas search and advertising on Google, they have been generating huge amounts of money at a high margin for years now. And to sacrifice that cash cow and exchange it for a much more risky business model that hasn't been proven yet and everyone's trying to work out is scary. So I'm sure there's a lot of people at Google right now who are worried, as well they should be. AA saying, disagree, RE, Google not being around in 10 years, they'll pivot completely from search to AI. Yeah, this is exactly what they're trying to do. But again, that's just like, regardless of the business model, going from a business where 75-80% of your revenue comes from one source and it's at 75% profit margin, sacrificing that in order to pivot into something else is going to be hard, really hard. It's a model that they've been using for a long time. Google have infamously released many products and then killed them off. So things like Google Plus, for example. Gosh, there's so many examples. Even Hangouts, they're dropping at the moment. They release a lot of things, they see what sticks, and then they kill anything else that does not. So I think they are 100% trying to do what you're saying. They're trying to pivot into AI. It's just a huge gap that they need to make up. And I do not have confidence in their ability to release a product that is going to be competitive. Gemini is very good, extremely good. Will they be able to get it up to 200 billion in revenue at 75% profit margin? Tricky. Nobody has yet. So it's a long way to go. Lambda. Thank you. It was Lambda. I wanted to call it Llama because it was so similar. And Bard, yeah, they've had a number of different. Bard became Gemini. Lambda was their model before the ChatGPT, before ChatGPT was Lambda. And then Bard was the one they released, which was not very good. And then that became Gemini later. Google AA says, didn't Google learn anything from Blockbuster and that photography company? So we talked about this yesterday. So Mustafa Suleiman, the ex-VP of AI, he said, yeah, we had Lambda and it was really good. And we sat on it because we knew it would kill our search engine business, which is exactly like Kodak. So Kodak, they were a chemical processing company who mainly made film stock for cameras, real cameras. They were the ones, one of their researchers came up with digital photography, and he took it up to the seniors at Kodak, and they were like, ooh, better sit on this. I think they even had the patent, so they were able to push back progress and make sure nobody else used it. Philips is another great one. Philips invented the MP3 for audio, the audio container, but they realized that, oh, wait, this digital music, this is going to be a problem for our CD and our cassette tape and hi-fi sales. So they sat on it. And Blockbuster famously had a chance to buy Netflix for, how much was it? It was a couple of $1 million. It was basically nothing. And they're like, no, this is not the future. People want to come and get the tapes and DVDs from the store. I think when you are an incumbent, when you have been in business for decades, in the case of Kodak have been around since, or were around since, I think the late 19th century. So they've been around for 100 years doing what they do. When somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I've got this new technology, it will destroy everything we do, but we should do it. But we should be the ones to destroy ourselves. We should be the one to cannibalize ourselves. That is a really hard decision for executives or leaders to make, a very brave decision to say, okay, this is coming, this technology exists. We will not exist in 10, 20 years. Do we want to be the makers of our own demise because we are going to spearhead this technology, or do we patent it, sit on it, hope nobody else finds out about it, and just ride out the next decade or two until we are no longer required? If you are an executive sitting at the top of Kodak, sitting at the top of Blockbuster, sitting at the top of Philips, and this comes up to you, comes up the chain, this existential threat, this thing that's going to destroy your company, but you are 5, 10 years from retirement, what decision are you going to make? Yeah, you're going to sit on it because you're going to get your golden parachute at the end of the 10 years. And who cares what happens to the rest of the company after that? So I see why it happens. It's sad. And it's the kind of stuff that gets you put in a case study for an MBA class. But I can also understand the reasoning. And I can see why Google a few years ago were like, absolutely not, bury it. Do not let this out because otherwise we're dead in the water. But by doing that, they lost the initiative to OpenAI. And now OpenAI are talking about things like a browser. So Perplexity just released their browser. Comet, OpenAI are producing their own one. Other ways to interface with the internet, other ways to get access to what users are searching for. This is why they're building browsers. It's for information. Funnily enough, Sam Altman the other day, he talked about his dream is to get ChatGPT or GPT-5 into the hands of everybody on Earth for free. And I saw lots of comments being like, oh, wow, he's such a hero. He's pushing forward humanity. If you are given a product for free, you are not the customer. You are the product. And this is the same with Google. When you use Google for free, you are the product. It's your attention, your eyeballs. That is what is then sold to people. So in the case of Google, by using Google for free, we become the product that they can then sell to advertisers by running ads at the top. Same with YouTube. By giving us YouTube for free, we watch videos, we get served up adverts, Google sell those adverts. So whenever something is free, and if ChatGPT becomes free or fully free, we are the product that's going to be sold. We are the attention. So we always need to be aware of this. What else do we have? Oh yeah, this was an interesting one. So on the 15th? Yeah, the 15th, about 10 days ago, YouTube said, we're putting a stop to all of this AI slop. We don't want any of this. Get out of here. This is ruining YouTube, and we only want high quality, authentic content made by real people. So we don't want any AI on there, which again, I see why, because if YouTube is flooded with AI content that increases the supply without necessarily increasing the demand. And it makes YouTube a less valuable platform because it's harder to find the actual things you want to see. So I understand why. So the way they're doing that is they are going to demonetize or not allow channels who create fully AI content to be monetized. That's their plan. Whether or not they can whether or not they can detect whether it's AI, they didn't really talk about, but presumably they have some methods in place. However, as of, what's this, July? So a week later, they have unlocked a new tool inside YouTube, which allows you to use Google's video AI called VO3 to create AI videos. So this feels, Google's always like this. Google has so many product divisions, it's such a huge company that it feels like they just don't talk to each other. So at one side, you have the monetization guys, the ad guys saying, nope, no more AI content on Google, get it off. It's going to destroy us. And then a week later, we have someone else, another team saying, hey, we're giving you a tool which allows you to upload a photo and turn it automatically into a video using AI. So it's just bizarre. This episode isn't meant to just be dunking on Google. It's just a very strange movement to give you a tool which allows you to create AI slop a week after saying, no, we're not allowing any more on YouTube. I have not played around with this yet, but it looks kind of cool. Okay, so it is available right now for everyone in the United States, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. So we'll probably see the similar rollout that we see with OpenAI, where the US gets it first, rest of world, then the UK, and then finally the European Union. So it's increasing level of regulation means we get it later and later. You can generally VPN into America if you want to try these things out earlier. But yeah, I'm not sure what they're doing here. I will play around a bit. VO3 is a very good model, and they are giving us access to it directly inside YouTube. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes. I will play around a bit and do some videos on it. Layla's saying Google's too big to be coherent. Yeah, I think that is part of the problem. They have so many business units across so many countries that it's very hard for them to all be collaborating and all be working on the same thing. And they also have the 1 day a week where you're meant to work on your own project, which leads to really cool things like Gmail came from that, for example. But it means everybody's always off making new things, and then trying to get that into a cohesive product strategy as a whole, as a conglomerate, is complicated, really difficult. That said, again, most of their revenue comes from search. It comes from running adverts. They are basically an advertising company, even if people don't think of them like that. That's where their money comes from. So anything that goes against that, you'd think there'd be somebody at the top being like, oh, actually, we've decided we're demonetizing AI because we can't run adverts on it, etc. So can you keep this down? But no, it appears that it is just an absolute free fall. It is incoherent, as you say.